Check it out.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, I'm pretty excited to show you what I've been working on. So for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Matt, this is Tech Forum. Primarily I cover the ownership experience of having my 2018 Tesla long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3. I've had it for about 83,000 miles now. We also have two other electric cars. We have a 2014 Smart Electric Drive. That's my son's daily transportation. And then a 2020 Mini Cooper SE Electric. That's my wife's daily driver. But I also I do a lot of mechanical engineering work. And one of the areas that I focus a lot of my attention on is an adjustable screen mount kit that I manufacture for the Model 3. So those of you that have been around for a while are familiar with the screen mount kit. I've been making it since, I believe it was September or October of 2019. And I wanted to show you guys that I have version 2, which is a swiveling screen mount kit that we are putting into production here soon. So I'll show you that. I have one sitting here off camera right now, the first pre-production machined on the CNC prototype. But first I wanted to show you guys a version 1 kit. So if you're unfamiliar with the kit, or if you're familiar with it but you want to see what the specific differences are, you can get an idea of it. So this is the version 1 kit, and it is a 2-piece machined aluminum kit. And what it does is it takes the hovering screen in the Model 3, it drops it down about 1.6 inches, leans it forward just slightly for a more sleek look, and angles it toward the driver. I did that for a number of reasons. One is when the Model 3 was released, they showed the screen in the prototype images, and that the screen was lower and leaned toward the dash in a real sleek way. And then upon taking delivery of the car, I noticed that it was more upright and higher. Also, the Model S screen is lower, it's angled forward more, and it's pitched toward the driver. And I really like the Model S screen layout. And so this mount kit accomplishes that, and it allows the screen to be, not only it's lowered and leaned forward by 9 degrees, but it also allows it to pitch to the side. And when it pitches to the side, it sweeps toward the passenger while angling toward the driver, and this keeps the corner of the screen from diving behind the steering wheel when you pivot it. Now the way it does this adjustment, oh, and by the way this functions is this part plugs into the dash in the same manner in which the stock screen used to plug into the dash, and then the screen now mounts underneath the lower section. So that's the way this rests in the car, and then it's covered with a padded fabric shroud sleeve. Now, the way you would adjust this screen mount kit normally is you would loosen these screws, sweep this to the side, and then snug the screws down. And what that does is, you can see how it moves it there, it angles the screen and allows it to sweep to the side. And once you get it at the position you want, you lock these 2 screws down, and the screen is fixed in that position, and it's nice and solid, and it won't move. Well, I had a number of people asking about making a pivoting screen kit, one that you can just grab and swivel it. And they said, well, I don't see why you can't just grab it and swivel it. Well, there are a lot of reasons for that, and not the least of which is very limited space within this area. Trying to put a pivot in that area would be very, very difficult. I have accomplished it here now, and I'll show you more on that in a second. But there's not a lot of room to work with within this space. And also the screen is somewhat large. It's a 15-inch cross-sectional screen. It's large, and it's somewhat heavy. When you hit bumps, it could jiggle. I mean, I wanted to make sure it was nice and solid as it is from the factory. So trying to make the screen mount pivot while still making the screen strong, so top to bottom it's not moving, and nor any rotational movement, was difficult. Well, what I came up with is this mount here. So this is my version 2. This is a swiveling adjustable screen mount, and this will be marketed within the next, I'd say, probably 4 weeks, possibly even less, maybe as little as 3 weeks from now. We have all the prototyping is done. I've actually been working on this for probably, well, since before COVID, so probably 5 months now. I made my first rough prototype and had some minor interference issues in that I had to work through. Well, now we have it, it's debugged, it's programmed, all the in the CNC, all the fixtures are done. There are a few minor visual changes that we're going to be making, but functionally, this is exactly what we'll be marketing. And it was very difficult to achieve this. For those of you that are wondering why I didn't make a pivoting screen kit sooner, there's some difficulty in doing this. Number one, the surface area where this washer is critical. If you look on this mount here, the thickness of this part means that it has to be held very tight against the upper mount in order to keep the screen from wanting to wiggle when it's clamped down. And but that, in making this pivot, you can't just make it swivel on one screw. For one thing, the screws are far too small. They're 1/4 inch diameter, roughly 6 millimeters. One screw just wouldn't be strong enough. It has to be a lot thicker, but also the surface area here would allow for bending of that pivot. And this was a tough thing to work out because, again, very limited space top to bottom. And what I did, you can see the thickness of this component here is far thicker than on the version 1 mount. So we increased this area in order to give surface area for this large washer. So this part is far thicker, and I had to come up with a number of solutions. Number one, I had to come up with a method of allowing the screen to swivel without jiggling or wiggling. And it's difficult to make a pivot that is solid, but is still movable. But it had to have a certain amount of friction, a certain amount of drag to it. Similar to grabbing your rear view mirror, it's got some drag to it. Well, there's a very specific amount of drag that's needed. Now, how do you make the pivot strong enough that the screen isn't going to want to jiggle and shake or bend or anything, but still loose enough that you can grab it and swivel it? Well, that's what I've accomplished here. So this washer is a specific special compound. This one I made from scratch, but I'm having custom friction thrust washers made, and to allow it to pivot. So you can see that this mount just actively pivots. And that pivot, you would think it's very easy to do, but again, the bending load on a pivot the pivot would have to be such large diameter, and it was just crazy. So I had to make sure that the angular stress wasn't taken by a bending load on the pivot, but rather through surface load on that washer, which is why I needed that wider surface area here. And but again, getting the right amount of friction to allow the screen to be movable without jiggling was kind of tough. Also, I found that in swiveling it left and right, there's a retention nut at the top, and that nut wanted to back off because of the drag of having it tightened down just to the surface of a washer. So, and I needed a variable tension on this whole pivot assembly that's adjustable with a spring. Well, by the time you add a bearing and a spring and a nut, the stack height was very high on this component. So what we have here, what looks like a stack of tiny washers, is actually a thrust shim, a needle thrust bearing, another thrust shim, then a Belleville or wave spring. I'm experimenting with which one will work better underneath the nut, and then a special low profile nut, and the stud, this steel stud, is no longer 1/4 inch, it's 1/2 inch, and it's a specific length. It is tapped and threaded into the lower portion of the mount and then Loctited in place with a specific type of Loctite. That was important. And so this was there was a lot involved here. Also, you'll notice this is a wire strain gauge. Now on the version 1 mount, this is the same orientation here, there's no strain gauge for the harness wire. Well, the reason for that is, with the version 1 mount, you move the screen to where you want it, you snug it down, and that wire stays put. But with this mount, being that it swivels left and right, suddenly now you're going to have people moving that screen back and forth, and it's going to be putting a bending load back and forth on the connector, the wire connector at the back of the screen, and that connector was never designed, there's no strain relief, it was never designed for continual left-right motion. So I installed a strap or strain relief here where the wire comes off the back of the circuit board, goes through the strain relief, which removes all bending load from the connector at the screen. So as you swivel the screen left and right, the harness coming out the back side of this will slightly sweep. It doesn't actually kink here. There's quite a bit of wire, and it can gradually curve left and right without putting any load at all on the connector. So that's a lot of what I went through to get this accomplished. Also, you'll notice that there are 2 holes, and I'm only using one. This mount can be used on left or right-hand drive cars because you can swivel, it'll swivel both directions no matter which hole it's in, but there is no center. It's either in left hole or right hole. Now let me explain that. So on this mount, in order to make this mount work for a right-hand drive car, we'd have to change the profile of the holes. This component here is asymmetrical, so this boss for the screws would have to be moved over. The upper mount here is asymmetrical, so we would have to mirror and change everything to be completely opposite of the left-hand drive mount. So that's why I hadn't released a right-hand drive kit until now. With this mount, since we're only using a pivot instead of that sweeping assembly, I can have 2 pivot holes and have for left-hand drive or right-hand drive cars. And the reason there's no center is because, if you remember, on this mount kit, I mentioned that when you angle the screen as it sweeps left or right, when you angle the screen, the corner of the screen wants to dive behind the steering wheel, and your line of sight will get blocked off by your knuckles at the lower corner of the screen. So I made it so the screen would sweep to the side away from the steering wheel while angling it, so that your no part of the screen is broken by your knuckles any more than it would be in the normal car. Well, with this kit, since it doesn't sweep left or right, what I did is I made a pivot to the right and a pivot to the left. And you want it installed in the pivot furthest away from the steering wheel so that when you angle it toward you, it wants to sweep behind the steering wheel, but it's already offset a little bit to the side. So it provides visual clearance of your knuckles. So you have roughly the same amount of screen clearance as you do with the car and with the stock screen location. And yet when you have it centered in the dash or angled to the passenger, it's such a small amount of offset from center, you really can't tell that it's no longer centered in the dash. This works wonderfully. I've asked people to look at it, and you can't tell that it's offset when the screen is in its flat plane. When it's angled to the side, it's in a perfect location. When it's flat parallel with the dash, that slight offset of about, it's less than an inch. I think it's about probably 18 millimeters, something along those lines. The screen actually looks more centered because now it's slightly away from the steering wheel, just that tiny little bit. So all of the changes that were made from version 1 to version 2 improves this mount overall. One other thing that it allows is it allows the screen to angle further toward the driver than the version 1 mount. The version 1 mount has a specific angle of inclination that it can be angled toward the driver. It's roughly similar to the way a Model S screen is tipped, maybe a little bit more. This mount allows the screen to be angled almost twice as much toward the driver, to where you are looking straight at the middle of the screen should you decide to move it that far, or you can just put it in any position you want. Also, you can loosen or tighten the packing nut at the top to give more or less drag to the angle change on the screen. So if you find that the screen is too easy to sweep left and right, you can snug it down. Or your passenger's finding it's too hard to angle it toward them, well, you can loosen it just a little bit. And I have found, my experience in my own car is that once you set the tension, it is consistently that amount of tension. It doesn't really vary. It doesn't seem to vary with temperature or humidity. That's another thing. The washer that I'm using, I'm specifically found a material that is humidity and temperature stable, so that the swiveling tension or friction is constant, depending no matter how the weather changes. So this mount kit, oh, also it will be pre-assembled for right-hand or left-hand drive. I will include instructions on how to move it from one side to the other should you maybe order the wrong one and you're in a right-hand drive country and you received a left-hand drive kit. I'll explain how the stack of washers goes so you can move it from one side to the other should you so desire. But this kit will be pre-assembled in the box. Now, it will cost a little bit more than the version 1 kit. And what I'm going to do is, when these go into production, I will be dropping the price of the version 1 kit. It will stay in production. I'm not discontinuing version 1 in favor of version 2. I will be marketing them both independently as separate products. So if you're the type of person that says, I'm never going to be moving that screen around, I'd rather save a few dollars and get the fixed mount. Or if you find that you really want to adjust it and so you don't mind spending a few dollars more, you can get the version 2 kit. Also, if you're in a right-hand drive country, this is the only option that will work for you. So also the machining tolerances have improved a bit. This kit is being manufactured on a different milling machine, and Mark, the machinist, has been just learning how to clean up the program and that over time. And so the precision, the version 1 kit was fine, but this kit, if you look, you can see there's quite a difference in the number of surfaces that get machined, and this is a much more complex kit to make both parts. So the machining tolerance is quite tight. The finish look of the version 2 kit is even slightly improved over the version 1. So the pricing isn't firmly set at this point, but from a preliminary thought standpoint, I believe we'll be lowering the price of the version 1 kit down to $245, and the version 2 pivoting kit will be $295. I've had a number of people mention to me that they'd rather pay less and they don't care that it swivels. I've done a lot of research on this. About 50% of people have said they'd rather save money and they're never going to be swiveling the screen, so they'd rather have version 1, so please don't discontinue version 1. But 50% of the people I talked to literally said they would never buy a screen mount kit if they can't swivel it. And so to that end, I developed this kit. So these kits will be going up on my Shopify page soon. It may be up even before this video goes live. I'm filming this on July 4th. But I wanted to show you guys what I've been working on and why I haven't been uploading much lately, because I've been putting so much time and effort into this pivoting version 2 kit. This will also be sold through our retailers. So I didn't want this video to be one long commercial, but I wanted it to be more a technical revealing of what's going on. So anyway, that's what's happening with it. If you want to go ahead and order a pivoting screen mount kit, you can go onto my Shopify page. There'll be a link in the description below. I'll also put a link on this kit. I'll probably include a bunch of links, the installation of this kit, whatever. There'll be a bunch of links in the description below of various videos related to the adjustable screen mounts. And so you can go to my Shopify page and look and see if you can pre-order it. Again, these won't be shipping for probably about 4 weeks. They are actually in production. I gave the machinist today the thumbs up to start producing them. This is the first one out of the CNC. And I've already had a couple people choose to upgrade. If you've recently ordered a Model 3 adjustable screen mount kit, you'll notice I emailed you and asked, would you like to upgrade to the pivoting kit and pay the difference and wait roughly a month? Or would you rather get a discount and get the version 1 kit shipped right away? If you have any questions for me, my email address will be a link in the description below, so you can go ahead and reach out to me. And I think that's it. I didn't want to make this too wordy, but I wanted you guys to see what I've been working with. And I know it may seem like a simplistic thing to have 2 parts pivot against one another. Again, there's a lot more involved in this than you might realize, mainly because it's not just swiveling in the middle. It's the right amount of drag with the right amount of strength in various axes, as well as holding tension properly and making it easily adjustable. The packing nut is right on the top, and now you can just lift the sleeve and adjust the tension, but you'll never need to use any tools for anything except setting tension. But once the tension is set, which I will preset it when I ship it, but once the tension is set, all you do is you take this out of the box, install it, you can swivel the screen, you never need to mess with the nut unless you want to alter the tension. So again, there's the mount. I'll give you some nice angles of it there so you can get an idea of what you'll be receiving. So that's it, guys. I think I'm set for today. I appreciate you all. I really do. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below. I look forward to showing you guys more on this as time moves on. So thanks a lot, and have a happy 4th of July if this video gets released on the 4th. And you guys stay charged. Bye-bye now.